Shalom, everyone. I am the Chief Magician of Mystery Babylon, and welcome to my holy channel. So let me just begin by first stating that, if you are a Christian who believes that Kabbalah is black magic and witchcraft and is heretical and don't know anything about Kabbalah, then let me just start by saying you've come to the wrong channel, wrong video. Please leave now. This holy channel is intended for the highest Kabbalists, Gnostics, Frankists, and Christian mystics of the highest order. So, in this video, again, I just recently announced on my blog that I have published, an extremely esoteric, Gnostic, Kabbalistic commentary to the Gospel of John or Yochanan in Hebrew. So, again, this is probably one of my highest works, right up there with, my Gnosticism in New Testament and my recently published Gnostic commentary to the Talmud. Now, my Gnosticism in New Testament is intended really as a high level, very advanced introduction into Gnosticism for Christians. The book is intended for all Christians, lay Christians, ignorant Christians, especially Christians who don't know anything about Gnosticism, right? I'm trying to get the message out, right? I'm trying to preach the actual, true, original gospel of Yeshu, which the whole world pretty much is unaware of and does not know. As I stated in the introduction to the book, that the true original gospel was diluted and became what we now call Orthodox Christianity. The reason is because most people can't handle the truth, and they can't handle the what's required, the lifestyle, that is required of a high level true ascetic Gnostic. So this is why in God's great love, this is the reason why he allowed the gospel to be diluted to what we now, recognize as Orthodox Christianity. Because you have to understand that the true original gospel of Yeshua is very hard. He himself said in the Gospels, right? You have to reject your family, you have to reject the world, you have to reject carnality, right? And these things are very hard for your average person to do, right? Yeshua's calling is the highest calling, right? It's an ascetic calling to be, an ascetic of the highest order. What we see with the Essenes, okay? And pretty much most people, if not everyone, can't handle that, can't accept that, can't live that. And for that reason, the gospel had to be diluted. And it was extremely diluted, okay? Because most people can't handle that, right? I'll give you my own story. When I was a very, very young Christian, you know, I had my own problems, with Christianity, accepting certain tenets of Christianity, especially, I felt, that, my feeling and understanding was, as a young Christian, was that if God told me that I can't have sex, being a very young man full with the highest level of testosterone, I was like, I can't follow God. I have to leave him. I can't accept that. I can't deal with that. I wouldn't be able to follow God, right? And that's when I was a very young, immature, ignorant Christian, okay? I've come a long way since then, but, it's to give you an understanding of everyone else, right? That's just one small example. If you tell all men, hey, you can't have sex, you can't have any ejaculation whatsoever, most guys, they can't deal with that. They can't handle that, right? And again, this is why the gospel had to be diluted, right? And then we have the Gnostic truths, extremely esoteric mysteries. It's too much. All of this esoteric wisdom, the lifestyle, it's just too much for your average person to handle. That's why the gospel had to be diluted. Of course, now that we're in the last generation, there is a desire for everyone to return back to that true original gospel. It's the desire that everyone can become a Gnostic and handle the lifestyle and handle the mysteries, right? But unfortunately, in this last generation, given the condition of this last generation, it's pretty much impossible that that's going to happen. And so we're only going to have a small, extremely small minority and remnant that are going to be true ascetic Gnostics, true holy, very, very holy ascetic Gnostics like myself. Okay, so again, that's briefly explaining the introduction to Gnostic New Testament. Now, as I was saying earlier, this book is meant as an advanced introduction into Gnosticism. Now, despite that, I reveal some of the highest of highest mysteries in the book. So it's a very, very powerful book. Okay. However, the issue is that, as I stated also in the introduction to the book, Gnosticism is an extremely massive, wide subject. The esoteric wisdom is massive. It's a lot. And obviously, my book cannot contain all of that. I can't reveal everything, right? So that's the point. And so I couldn't reveal the highest of highest mysteries in the book. Plus, it's meant to be an introduction, so I can't, unless I'm not going to reveal the highest of highest mysteries. And so it's important for everyone to know that there are ridiculously sublime mysteries that I could not reveal in the book. On top of that, there are Gnostic seals in the New Testament that are very explicit, ridiculously sublime, and ridiculously esoteric that I also could not reveal, in the book. Which is very sad, very, very sad, because these are seals that I would more than love to reveal. I just can't, because most people don't have the necessary foundation and meet the necessary prerequisites to fully understand those mysteries. And they're very, very esoteric, ridiculously sublime, and they're very overt, very explicit, right in the New Testament, and only meant for true grandmasters or masters to see. The New Testament, again, is, the New Testament along with the Talmud are two of the most ancient texts that we have. And I would say they are the most Kabbalistic, most esoteric texts that we have. The problem is that these texts are being read and understood on a literal level. That's the problem. The New Testament is read is understood and read literally, which it was never meant to be, really. And so is the Talmud. The Talmud is 70% of the Talmud is halakha. But as I stated in the previous video, the Talmud encodes the highest esoteric wisdom. The highest esoteric wisdom is encrypted and encoded in the Talmud. And same thing applies to the New Testament. And practically no one in the world knows or understands any of this. That's why I published this very momentous Gnostic commentary to the Talmud and this very powerful monumental work, Gnosticism in the New Testament, to show you all the proofs and seals that quintessentially the New Testament is Gnostic. Now, in this video, I want to focus on my recently published very esoteric Gnostic commentary to the Book of John, because this book is completely written in Hebrew and Aramaic, and whereas my Gnosticism in New Testament book is meant as a very, very extremely advanced introduction, into understanding Gnosticism, with respect to the New Testament. In this Gnostic commentary to the Gospel of John, I'm going crazy, super balls deep into revealing the highest of highest mysteries. Okay? The problem that we have is that most scholars are so stupid and so ignorant and so inferior that they don't even understand that the New Testament was originally quintessentially Gnostic. Now, the good news is that in the past 100 years, there were a few scholars, maybe like 2 or 3 scholars, that they were very advanced enough to understand that, there might be some Gnostic elements in the New Testament. And they put a lot of their focus on the Gospel of John because it was very apparent to some of the highest leading scholars that the Book of John might have been a proto-Gnostic gospel or text. So they were on the right path. But again, they were too stupid and too ignorant to realize and prove that indeed the Gospel of John is 100% Gnostic. That's where I come in, of course. But the real good news is that within the past decade or so, there are a few very elite scholars that have come on the scene and are starting to realize the original Gnostic essence of the New Testament and the Gospel. And there's been some very profound work that has been done, very profound scholarly work that has been done on this matter. In fact, recently, one of the best books that I know of in the scholarly field in regards to the New Testament is a book that was recently published, was the entire New Testament of the Gnostic Marcion of Sinope. And that is one of the best books. That is one of the best scholarly books out there that proves that, with all the highest proofs and seals, that indeed the New Testament was originally Gnostic. And this is a very, very elite, top-notch scholar that I have the highest respect for. Unfortunately, I don't have all the information at the top of my head, so you'd have to contact me if you want to access that book. Or you know what? Maybe I think I'm gonna put up a slide right now of let me put up a slide of that book right now so you guys can all see. So this is the book that I'm talking about. So so yeah, so anyways, as I was saying, I go really crazy balls deep in this Gnostic commentary to the Book of John, just revealing crazy mysteries that will just absolutely mind fuck you in every regard. Okay, just ridiculous. And what I want to do in this video is I just want to give you a little taste, an extremely, extremely small sample and very, very small taste of what is revealed in this book. And I want to begin in going back to Lyranic Kabbalah. So as I said in the previous video, right, that practically every Kabbalist out there is very ignorant and uninitiated, right? Even the master Kabbalist. Think of the most famous Kabbalists you can think of. Moshe Cordovero, Chaim Vital, right? They too were not fully initiated and entertained errors of the highest order. So none of the Kabbalists, even the most famous Kabbalists you can think of the past 1,000 years, did not have the full knowledge and wisdom of the Kabbalah. Now, the problem is that they thought they did. Some of them believed, like, oh, look at me, I'm very highly initiated, I have all this wisdom, I'm going to write these books to explain the Kabbalah to Israel. When in fact, they did not possess the full wisdom of the Kabbalah at all, not even close. And I'm the only person right now in this last generation that is preaching and teaching this, because I'm the chief magician of Mystery Babylon, and I have all the keys. I have all the seals. I have all the proofs of all of my assertions or everything that I say. And it's very mind-blowing. When you think about it and you put it in perspective, it's very, very mind-blowing because, it's crazy. It's like you're in the Matrix. Everyone's in the Matrix. And you need somebody like me, a Morpheus-type figure like me, a divine initiator, that is going to tell you some very compelling truths that are going to seem really crazy and really out there, And most people that see me, they're very quick to judge. Ooh, who does this guy think he is? Oh, he's just some silly magician. Oh, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Oh, he's a retard or whatever. Everyone's judging me inappropriately and inaccurately. Because, like everyone, they just judge a book by its cover. They don't do their due diligence and their full research. And so they miss the boat completely. It's very sad. But again, these are very profound truths that I'm revealing. And, it's really, again, I don't know how else to express it other than that it's very mind-blowing and it's very crazy when you put it into perspective of what I'm saying, okay? Because it's very hard for people to accept this, right? On my recent video that I published, right, I had a stupid Jewish jackass post a comment saying, so your commentary to the Talmud is greater than the Ben Ish Chai? Because everyone puts the Ben Ish Chai on a very high pedestal. He's considered to be one of the most famous, most elite of all Kabbalists. Who the hell are you? Who the hell is this Jew here who is saying that his commentary to the Talmud is 1,000 times greater and superior to the commentary of the Ben Ish Chai? Well, of course, you're going to say that if you don't know who I am. If you don't know me, if you don't know who I am, yeah, it's very easy to say that, right? It's very easy to judge, right? People aren't careful in how they judge. People don't do their due diligence, right? But this is the essence and nature of the last generation. It's full of retards and ignoramuses all across the board. Okay, it's very sad. And no one's willing to pay attention. No one's listening, right? I'm very unknown. The scholars don't know who I am. The Kabbalists don't know who I am. I'm very small. So you're very, very blessed. Blessed are you if you know who I am and you've come to my channel and my blog and you follow me very closely, blessed are you. You are the most blessed in this last generation. Amen, amen. Okay, that's all I can say. So, again, let's get back to me wanting to give you a little tiny taste, powerful, powerful sample and taste of what's revealed in this book. So, there are passages in this book that are concerned with the Lurianic Kabbalah, right? Now, as I stated, the thing is that the Arizal was a Gilgul. He was a reincarnation of the Mashiach. So he was divine, fully initiated. The problem was that Chaim Vital was not divine and was not fully initiated. And let's just say he wasn't the sharpest pencil in the box, to put it lightly. And so he wasn't able to fully understand all of the teachings of the Arizal. Moreover, he was under strict orders not to fully reveal all of the arcana that the Arizal transmitted to him. This is very, very momentous to understand. For that reason, the Lurianic Kabbalah is very inferior and riddled with errors of the highest order. However, there are aspects of the Lurianic Kabbalah that encrypt and encode the highest mysteries. Of this, there is no question. Okay? So we have to understand this dichotomy at play. Yes, within the Lurianic Kabbalah, some of the highest mysteries are being revealed, but some of them are highly encrypted. And I reveal this in my book, The Divine Revelations of the Holy Samael. There's a chapter where I fully reveal this, where I reveal practically the highest mystery within the Lurianic Kabbalah, and I prove and show how it was highly encrypted. And I give the full revelation of that mystery. I give the full revelation of that mystery in my Divine Revelations of the Holy Samael. So I reveal the highest mysteries. I reveal practically the highest mystery of the Lurianic Kabbalah and show how it was entirely encrypted within the Lurianic corpus. Okay, and so yes, the Lurianic Kabbalah absolutely contains some of the highest mysteries. Some of them are highly encrypted, but at the same time, it also contains errors of the highest order, which I'm going to show here shortly. So I want to begin by mentioning, Christian von Rosenroth, who was a Christian grandmaster. He was a Christian Kabbalist and grandmaster who was initiated by Shabbatane grandmasters. This is documented. This is very well known. What's not really well known is that he wrote a very extremely profound book, and it's called Messiah's Pu'er. I'll show it right here. You can see I have a slide of it right here that you can see. This is the cover of the book. And let's just say it's not a very well-known book, but it is probably one of the highest, most profound books that he wrote. And there's a very special passage in this book where he does something that no one had ever known or done until his time, which is he shows how the Lurianic Kabbalah and the teachings of the Zohar are very ancient and were encrypted within the New Testament. So, having been initiated into the Lurianic Kabbalah, he then goes to show in the New Testament how you already see aspects and secrets of the Zohar and the Lurianic Kabbalah in the New Testament. Okay, this is very powerful, right? So, a while back, many years ago, I published a book called Writing Upon the Palanquin, which was a very esoteric Qabbalistic commentary on the Book of the Apocalypse, or the Book of Revelation, as it is widely known. And in that book, I show how so much of the wisdom and teachings of the Zohar are encrypted within the Book of the Apocalypse, or the Book of Revelation. This has now been followed up by my book, Gnosticism in the New Testament, where I go balls deep in showing how the book is quintessentially Kabbalistic and entirely Gnostic, right? And so that's why I am who I am, that I say that I am, because for many centuries, there were many leading occultists, profane goyim occultists, that they sort of were intelligent enough to understand that the Book of the Apocalypse was Kabbalistic, but they couldn't prove it. They couldn't put their finger on it. It took until the last generation, until the chief magician of Mystery Babylon, to come on the scene, to be the first Jew the first scholar, the first man to provide all of the seals, all of the explicit seals and proofs that Amen, Amen, the book of Revelation is indubitably and quintessentially completely Gnostic and Kabbalistic in nature. That's what separates me from everyone else. Okay? Now, getting back to the topic at hand. So, Christian von Rosenroth reveals, this very powerful seal of the Lurianic Kabbalah in the New Testament. So now we're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm just going to give you some crumbs here. All I'm doing in this video is giving you a few crumbs. I'm going to give you one huge, massive, humongous crumb that I shouldn't even be revealing or even be giving, but I'm going to give it in this video in my great mercy, which is absolutely ridiculous, giant crumb. We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's begin in showing how the Lurianic Kabbalah and the teachings of the Zohar are indeed very ancient. They're quintessentially Gnostic, very ancient, and were known by the ancient Gnostic grandmasters. It's not something that some medieval Jew pulled out of his ass, like most stupid scholars and a lot of Jews think, okay? Now, so let's get into it here now. So we know that the Zohar in the Idra Rabbah, which is considered one of the highest, if not the most esoteric section of the Zohar, highly encrypted. It gives a very esoteric exegesis on Bereshit chapter 36, on the kings of Edom. And, it then talks about the breaking of the vessels, right? It's highly encrypted in the Zohar. So, a lot of the first Jews that were reading the Zohar, they didn't really have a full understanding of this very, very esoteric section of the Zohar that's talking about the kings of Edom and their deaths and the breaking of the vessels. It wasn't until the Arizal came on the scene, who's the divine Mashiach, that he began to give the full gnosis of this section, and he began to give a full explication, revelation of this very esoteric section in the Idra Rabbah in the Zohar, right? And so we have 8 kings that are delineated in Bereshit chapter 36, and we have that 7 kings die, but the 8th king is the only king that is alive. And what separates the 8th king from the previous 7 kings is that he has a wife, right? So according to the Lurianic Kabbalah, right, one of the reasons that the 7 kings died is because they were unisexual in nature and not bisexual. What separates Hadar from the prior 7 kings is that he's the first bisexual king and that he has a wife, okay? And what is the name of the 8th king? His name is Hadar, okay? Now, this is where the genius and the high initiation of Christian von Rosenroth shows, because he's already seen the keys and the connection in the New Testament. In the New Testament, right, we have we begin with the story of Yeshu, and we're given a lot of historical context. Part of that being that the tetrarch, or you could say kind of the king, the quasi-king over Israel, is a Edomite who goes by the name of Herod. Okay? Now, at first glance, there might not seem to be a connection here, but absolutely there is if you dig deep enough. Why? Because the Masoretic text of Bereshit chapter 36, I think it's verse 39, says that the 8th king's name is Hadar. But it's very interesting that if we go to the LLX, the Septuagint, there his name, we are given a different name. There his name is Harad ben Barad. So we're given a fuller name in the Septuagint than we are in the Masoretic text. This is our first hint that there might be some slight corruption to the Masoretic text. We all true grandmasters know that the Masoretic text has been slightly corrupted and is not the actual 100% true original text that existed, say, 2,000 years ago. The Dead Sea Scrolls have sort of pretty much proven this. But this is a matter beyond the canon scope of this video. Needless to say, it's very, very interesting that Septuagint, pointing to a much more ancient true original, has Harad, which is actually just a permutation of Hadar. You have to understand that in the Hebrew language, the letters Daleth and the letter Resh look very similar. They almost look the same, and they get confused a lot. And when you compare the Septuagint to the Masoretic text, you see a lot of times where the Daleth and the Resh are interchanged and exchanged because there seems to be some confusion. That's possibly where some of the corruption came into play, is in mistaking, Daleths for Reshes and Reshes for Daleths. Okay? But it's the same letters, just a permutation. So Herod, King Herod, or Harad in the original Greek, is just a permutation of Hadar. And he's Edomite. He's a king of Edom. So this is our first great sublime key that provides a nexus, a connection between the Lurianic Kabbalah and the New Testament, showing that the New Testament is very Gnostic and is encrypting mysteries of the highest order here, when you understand these mysteries, okay? Now, we have to also understand that Herod died, right? He died. He ended up dying. And we also have a structure here, right? We have to look at the regal structure that stood over Israel. There were 3 tetrarchs over Israel, and there were a number of governors over Israel coming from Rome, which we also designate as Edom. Now, before I get any further, I want to reveal one of the highest keys here. So, as I stated earlier, one of the problems that we have is that the New Testament is read and understood on a literal basis, which is a big mistake. It's fine. You can do that. You'll get a lot of information out of that. But if we're going to understand the highest mysteries, we have to understand the New Testament is encrypting all of the mysteries. Okay? So, how do we access some of the highest arcana that are being encrypted in the New Testament? And another question is, how are they being encrypted? Well, I'm going to reveal the highest key here. Okay? So, Yeshu spoke in parables, as is known. Okay? What's a parable? A parable can be likened to a story. A lot of parables begin with stories. So, here's the highest key I'm going to reveal. The highest keys, the highest esoteric wisdom, can only be understood when you understand the entire Synoptic Gospels and the entire life of Yeshu as a parable. Okay? So imagine the entire life of Yeshu. It's one big story, right? Imagine I'm telling you a story. And I say, one day there was a Jewish man who was born. His name is Yeshu. He was born into a land of Israel that had 3 tetrarchs over it, this Roman governor over it, and all this stuff is going on. You give all this big story about the story of Yeshu and all of the surrounding details of his life. Who's ruling over Israel, who are the Roman governors over Israel, all of the details of the life of Yeshu and all the surrounding details. Okay, when you understand all of that as one huge parable, when all of it becomes a parable, that's the first key. That's the first level. To access all of the arcana behind that massive parable, you have to understand all of the codes and symbols and what they truly mean. What does the 3 tetrarchs over Israel symbolize? What about all the governors over Israel? What do they symbolize? All these men that Yeshua is meeting, all the priests, the Jews, what is it? All these are symbols. What do they all represent? They're all esoteric, arcane symbols, occult symbols. When you have the keys to decrypt all of the symbols, the entire parable, then you will be in possession of the highest of esoteric wisdom, which I possess and will never. It's fully revealed in my Sefer Absolute, but this will never be openly revealed. But I've given you one of the highest keys of how to approach the New Testament, how to understand it. And I'm already doing a little bit of that because I've already given you one of the highest keys, which is the tetrarch over Israel, King Herod, is the mystery of the eighth king of Edom, who is King Hadar. Now, I think the governor that was the Roman governor that was all over Israel at that time, his name was Tiberius. I think Tiberius Caesar was his name. This is very interesting because, and by the way, everything that I'm revealing here is revealed in my book, in this very esoteric Gnostic commentary to the book of John. But I go crazy balls deep in the commentary. I'm just, like I said, I'm just giving you a few crumbs here, okay? So, again, going back to the Roman governor who was over Israel at this time was uh, Tiberius Caesar, I think is his name, if I remember correctly. Now, this is very interesting because, again, we Jews, we designate Rome as Edom, right? We know that Rome is the mystery of Edom, okay? So there's two levels to Edom. There's proper Edom. King Herod is a proper Edomite. And then there's a secondary level, which is Rome, which is also represents Edom. So understand this dichotomy at play going on with Edom. Now, the name Tiberius in Greek, the way you write it in Aramaic or Hebrew is Tiber. It's the letters Tau, Bet, Resh. It's very interesting because the way you write that name in Hebrew or Aramaic, it has a meaning. And what is its meaning? Breaking. The meaning is breaking. Again, a telastic allusion to the breaking of the vessels. So that's the second key that I just gave you. And you're starting to see, as we connect dot by dot, line upon line, precept upon precept, how this very esoteric Gnostic understanding of the depths of the kings of Edom is already being esoterically reflected in the New Testament, in the Gospels. We have King Herod, who is the eighth king of Edom, which is Hadar, which is a permutation of Herod. I mean, according to the Septuagint, it's actually Herod, not Hadar. You have Tiberius Caesar. The name Tiberius in Hebrew or in Aramaic or Hebrew, the way it's rendered, signifies breaking. Again, it's a lesser allusion to the breaking of the vessels. Okay? Now, there's a lot more connections. I'm not going to reveal all of the connections, how deep the rabbit hole really goes. A lot of that's revealed in my Gnostic commentary to the book of John, if you're able to read Hebrew and Aramaic, if you get it, okay? But I've given you two powerful keys here already, showing this, okay? Now, this is where I'm going to give you the absolute biggest breadcrumb here, okay? That I shouldn't be giving. And this is the highest seal and proof of one of the highest errors in the Lurianic Kabbalah, right? So according to the Zohar and the Lurianic Kabbalah, Hadar represents sort of the beginning of Israel. The 7 kings that died before him represent the klipoth of the Sitra Achra. Okay? And so now Hadar is supposed to represent a brand new regeneration, a new generation of pureness and holiness that comes forth because it is bisexual, which is the mystery of the Holy God. Okay? But we have to question this. Is this really correct? The New Testament is truly more ancient and more Gnostic than the medieval Kabbalah. As I've been stating multiple times up to this point, the medieval Kabbalah is an inferior residual image, a corrupted residual image. If we want to go to the truth, we have to go more back in time. The more back in time we go, the closer we are to the source, the closer we are to the truth. So the corrupted inferior residual Zohar and Lurianic Kabbalah teach that Hadar represents the beginning of a new holy kin or emanation, so to speak. But there's a contradiction because in the New Testament, King Herod is evil. King Herod is like this wild, crazy, evil man. Now, the divine well here goes so crazy effing deep, so crazy effing esoteric, I can't reveal anymore. I've already given you a huge, massive ass crumb here that I shouldn't even be revealing, should not have revealed at all, because this gnosis is what's revealed in my Sefer Asluth, where there I go balls deep in revealing all of the mysteries connected to this. I mean, I go infinitely deep into the divine well, okay, with the gnosis there. Never going to be revealed. But I just gave you proof, just one of the highest proofs of the corruption of the Zohar and the Lurianic Kabbalah's understanding of the system, of the true actual system. But it's correctly revealed and understood in the New Testament because that's the most ancient text we have that's directly from the source, Yeshu himself. You see, we have to understand the difference between ancient voracious Gnosticism and the medieval Kabbalah. Why is the medieval Kabbalah inferior and corrupt? Well, understand that the ancient where does the actual true Kabbalah and Gnosticism come from? What is the actual true source of it all? It's Yeshu. It's Yeshu HaMashiach. He's the source. Why did Gnosticism spring up so intensely right after Yeshu came on the scene? Because he was the one that revealed all the secrets. He initiated his disciples, and his disciples initiated other disciples. And that's how Gnosticism grew, because he was the highest Gnostic that ever has walked the earth, and he gave all the gnosis, the correct gnosis. So all of the ancient Gnostics were right there with the source. Okay? Now, the highest secret that I've revealed in my previous videos is that the Merovingian line to which I belong, if you didn't know I'm a Merovingian, that's why I am who I am, because I'm a Merovingian. The Merovingian line possessed and safeguarded the highest mysteries. And it was my line, my forefathers and patriarchs that revealed the Zohar in Spain. And that was our first great hint to all the Jews that this is a Christian Gnostic text, because I've already written a paper proving that the Zohar is quintessentially a Christian Gnostic text, but it's highly encrypted. That's the problem. It's highly encrypted. That's why no one fully understands it. The reason I possess all of these keys and all the esoteric wisdom is because, one, I'm a Merovingian. I descend from the bloodline that safeguarded all the mysteries to the Zohar. So I have all the mysteries. I have all this gnosis. That's why I can reveal it, because I go back to the patriarchs who were behind the Zohar and all the mysteries. Okay? Understand this. This is very critical and important to understand. Okay? So the problem was that the Christian Gnostic foundation of the Zohar was concealed. Okay? The vast majority of Jews were too stupid to know and understand this. Okay? There were quite a number of them that actually did. And unfortunately, they were the Jews that were against the Zohar. Okay? Highly unfortunate. Unfortunately, the intelligent Jews that were pro-Zohar were too stupid and too ignorant to understand this. Now, what do all the Jews do? They reject Yeshu. They reject Yeshu. Yeshu is the chief cornerstone and foundation of Gnosticism and the entire Kabbalah. So how can you have the full gnosis of Kabbalah if you reject Yeshu? That's the problem with the medieval Kabbalah. That's the reason why it's inferior, residual, and corrupted, because of their rejection of Yeshu. You cannot have the full gnosis without Yeshu, without the Mashiach. And they don't know who the hell the Mashiach is in their stupidity and ignorance. Highly, highly momentous to understand this. Go read the Piece of Sophia. One of the highest texts of Gnosticism is the Piece of Sophia, and it all centers around the Mashiach, because all Gnosis centers around the Mashiach. And if you do not know who he is, you don't have a relationship with him, you have no Gnosis. And that's the condition and state of all Jews who claim to be Kabbalists and study Kabbalah. And that's why they know nothing. They think they do. They think they understand the Zohar. They think they understand the Lurianic Kabbalah. They spend all of their lifetimes in the yeshivas, and it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. They will get nowhere in the end. Mark my words. Okay, so that's all I can reveal. I've given you essentially three crumbs, three massive, huge crumbs. One crumb is the highest crumb I could ever possibly reveal. And hopefully you will all love me and thank me for it. But that's it. That's all I can reveal, guys. That's just a small sample, a small taste to get your appetite wet, to get your juices flowing. Okay? I hope you enjoyed. Shalom. Wassalam.